These days, everyone in Korea is going crazy over an online multiplayer game where players can create their own dungeons. In the middle of all these people, we meet our hero Kang Shi-woo, a player so insane that people suspect he's using other people or some kind of artificial intelligence. Honestly, this guy is always at the top of the rankings, so it's normal for people to think he's a robot with artificial intelligence. The reason why he's so obsessed with this game is simple. There, he has total control over everything. Unlike the real world, in real life, everything seems impossible. You can tell just by looking at those telephone poles. He can't move them or use them in any way to make the most of them. But in the game, he could change the size, the shape, or anything else just with a click. Even that truck speeding towards him could be dodged with a simple command. But since he's in the real world, he's already bracing himself to get ice-skied as soon as the truck hits him, right? Luckily, the truck driver slams on the brakes just in time. Although the driver gets angry seeing Shin-woo standing in the middle of the street, our protagonist simply points to the traffic, which at that moment is green for the crosswalk. It's frustrating for him not to be able to do whatever he wants in this world. If he had the power to change reality, like in the game, everything would be so much easier. For example, that giant iron bar that's loose and about to fall. It's only a matter of time before it crushes that little girl like a tomato. Without thinking twice, Kanji runs to push the girl out of the truck and ends up dying in her place, tragically. But, as we all know, that's not how his life ends. When he opens his eyes again, he finds himself floating in a black void, and in front of him there's a monster with a demonic face that grants him a bit of wisdom. He reveals that death is just a means to reincarnation, and Xinwu still hasn't seen the true reality he was unaware of. With all that, Xin's soul is thrown into the body of a demon. And of course, he's full of questions, like, where the hell is he? Whose body is this? And why isn't he dead? One thing's for sure, he's almost certain he reincarnated into someone else's body. Overwhelming sensations flood his senses and prove that this isn't just a dream. And as for where he is, all he can tell is that he's inside an ancient castle. While he's muttering all these questions to himself, he's struck by a sharp blade that pierces his chest, making blood gush out. The woman then pulls out the sword, causing even more pain. While she enjoys watching him suffer, Xin can't understand how he's still conscious after taking such a brutal blow. He turns to her and asks why she's doing this. The girl doesn't even bother to explain. She raises her sword again to obliterate Xin into pieces. But she stops just as quickly as she started when another corpse enters the scene. It turns out the three of them are siblings, and the girl's name is Kildura, their sister. The oldest brother, who shows up now, feels sorry for the youngest and asks their sister not to be so hard on him. He kneels down to be at Xin's eye level and hands him a potion. He pretends to care about his little brother, giving the impression that he really worries about him. Well, our boy takes the potion thinking it's some kind of healing elixir. As soon as he drinks it, he finds out the hard way that it's poison and quickly throws up. And, by the way, his name in this world is Kella. His throat feels like it's being pierced by a million needles, and it's so hot it feels like it's boiling. Seeing him suffer, his sister gets worried, thinking he's about to die. After all, she wants to be the only one to take his life. The older brother reassures her, saying that he might be in pain, but he won't die that easily. And suddenly, the castle gates open and the soldiers announce the return of the Hell King, Kalden, from his hunt for the hero. And get this, the king in question is the father of these pathetic siblings who are bullying Kella. And as we get closer to the king, who seems to be the real Chad of the story, it looks like this guy is a bit disappointed to hear the pathetic cries of pain echoing through his castle. The trashy sister starts apologizing for the whole mess and tries to blame Kella himself, but the Demon King isn't buying any of her nonsense. In an instant, he closes the distance, grabs both of his children by the throat, and starts choking them with his divine grip. To him, it's humiliating for the weak to make any noise within the walls of his castle. Both siblings keep apologizing with their breath choked off. Then Kella realizes that this bastard is actually his own father. If those pathetic parasites are his siblings, the Demon King starts stomping on Kella. After all, the only voices he'll tolerate in his castle are the sounds of great demons being born or the sound of an honorable death. With those words, he stomps on Kella like he's an empty soda can, making his screams echo throughout the castle. While he lies there defeated, one thing is certain, he's not dreaming. He's definitely reincarnated in another world. And to make this comedy of errors even worse, our boy is the son of a scoundrel demon lord. Before we move forward with the story, let's take a trip down memory lane to Kella's childhood. He was always the target of his siblings' attacks, so because of that, he was constantly crying and complaining to his mom. While Dara poked him in the eye with a fork, Tarm would poison his food. The only advice his loving mother gives is that he should pay them back in kind, just like a true demon would. Kella could even do that, but he's afraid of the consequences of messing with his other siblings, since he could end up dead. So, in that case, his mother suggests that he should kill them before they manage to finish him off. And it's worth remembering that Kella's father, over the course of his life, killed about 12 siblings and became the true Great Demon King. So, if someone is trying to kill Kella, logic says he has to defend himself, right? Then, all of a sudden, he pulls out a dagger and stabs the poor guy in the stomach, teaching him the ways of demons. That's how he should treat his siblings. As soon as she wakes up from her gasping nightmare, a maid is by his side, looking relieved to see him awake. Meanwhile, our boy tries to piece the puzzle together. What he saw in the dream were fragments of memories from the original owner of this body. Kella called and realizes that all the wounds have already healed, proving that the previous owner of this body had some extremely bizarre regenerative abilities. The maid reminds him that he's been sleeping for days and that he should get up to eat with the family to regain his strength. This woman is actually Kella's personal maid, who goes by the name Rin. Kella was much shyer than his siblings, so he ended up being looked down upon. So Rin doesn't treat him at all like a maid should. Kella has a lot of memories of Rin, and none of them are good. This woman was never an obedient servant, always slacking off instead of doing her job. In short, she's a real troublemaker, and for the first time, Kella feels that the previous owner of this body was truly pathetic. If he weren't, he wouldn't have allowed a servant to treat the Demon King's son like that. And honestly, Kella was bullied by everyone, all the time. Come to think of it, his life here isn't all that different from how it was in his previous world. At this point, my friend, it's just the law of nature. The weak are devoured by the strong. Later, when he sits down at the family table to eat, he finds his father and brothers there. The Demon King seems a bit annoyed with Kella's lack of punctuality, and Kella naturally feels intimidated. But, I mean, he's right in front of the Demon King, isn't he? Even so, he sits down and apologizes for being late. The poor guy can't catch a break. Then, his sister, Kildara, throws a dagger under the table, hitting him right in the leg. That caused unbearable pain. While Kildara and her servant laugh like hyenas, she teases him and says she hopes he eats well and becomes a good man. On the inside, Kella is dying from the pain. He can't even imagine what would happen if his family found out that the person in this body isn't Kella anymore. But on the outside, he appreciates her concern and promises to eat well. However, as soon as he takes the first bite, he realizes that what he's eating isn't food. It seems to be something made by Tarmi, as usual, who instead of bringing real food, served the horrible soup as an appetizer. Tarmi keeps a smile on her face, pretending to care a lot about Kella, but Kella knows very well that it's all just for show. To be honest, the three demons at the table aren't a family at all, they're arch enemies. And that's when he makes a vow. This guy, he's determined not to be a punching bag for these bastards anymore. He's tired of their nonsense and is going to change for the better. Kella always wanted to do something for himself, and in the game, he was recognized as the strongest map designer. But when it came to real life, he was a complete disaster. He felt powerless, hopeless, without a single ray of light. And that's how he died like a dog, crushed by an iron bar. But this time, he won't have a pathetic death. With that in mind, he grabs a tray of food and throws it in his sister's face. After all, she should be the only one to taste the food that Tarmi prepared with so much care, right? Besides that, he pulls the dagger out of his leg and throws it at Tarmi. Again, he's not going to be the only one enjoying the gift his sister gave him. Of course, the Demon King has no idea what made Kella suddenly snap. The guy is losing it. He grabs the dining table and flips it over, sending everything flying off. Then, after a while, we go back to Kella, who looks completely satisfied to have made his family taste their own poison. Although he probably shouldn't have flipped that table, because it made his father furious, our poor Kella ends up getting smashed to the ground, looking like a pathetic dog. But he bounces back pretty quickly, so at least, he's not complaining. It seems like he feels a strange power inside him, as if he really were the son of the Demon King himself. And at that moment, he wants to find out just how far his abilities go. Almost like it's a sign, his maid remembers, and he gets the lessons on demonic powers that he's supposed to have. But Kella responds coldly, saying he's not going to accept that bossy tone from her. And of course, Rin is left in disbelief, not understanding where all this attitude is coming from. Meanwhile, Kella brings up these thoughts about the demon power lesson from Kella's memories, which he can't access. Those lessons are some of the worst experiences of his life. But even so, that's not a reason for him to skip them. Later, when he arrives at the training field, the instructor announces that Lady Kildara and Lord Tarmi won't be attending today's class. And among the students, Kella doesn't seem impressed by what he sees on his classmates' shoulders. He remembers them from Kella's memories, and they're not good memories. In those memories, these guys would always bully the shy Kella, claiming it was just practice. All of them, including the brothers, were real demons, taking pleasure in intimidating him as if it were just a game. Even though Kella never wanted to fight or take part in those fake duels, they always found an excuse to beat him up, leaving him all bruised. And to Kella, it became clear the previous owner of this body wasn't weak, just too kind for his own good. And now that the nice Kella is gone, he plans to change everything. He's going to use these incredible powers for himself and show those idiots just how worthless they really are. When class starts, the teacher announces that they'll continue with the sparring session. The redhead starts saying that he was the one who fought Kella last time. He starts provoking and talking a lot of nonsense just to annoy Kella, but that's a mistake he really shouldn't make, and Kella is sure he's going to regret it a lot. As the two fighters face off, the redhead begins to conjure up red and blue energy around his hands, fully preparing himself for the duel. And as usual, the spectators believe that Kella is going to get beaten up again. Some of them even tell the redhead to go easy on Kella, otherwise they won't be able to stand his screaming. Kella notices how these jerks are just like the bullies from his previous life, and in a way, they remind him of his old self. Like in his previous life, his past life, he had no money or strength and everyone looked down on him. But now, all of that is going to stay in the past. And with that, our hero starts to radiate an immense amount of mana, enough to make his opponent shrink back in fear. Not just the redhead, but all the idiots who love to mess with Kella are now terrified. The redhead looks like he's on the verge of a nervous breakdown, and Kella, in turn, clenches his fist and delivers a devastating punch, slamming that idiot into the ground. The henchmen, who were having fun mocking before, are now standing there with their mouths open in shock. Even the teacher is in a tough spot, sweating bullets. The fact that Rudy didn't even have a single chance to defend himself is incredible. Rudy's face now looks really messed up, all beaten with horns and broken teeth and blood everywhere. And Kella, meanwhile, isn't playing around. That punch is to make it very clear that Kella isn't just some random loser kid anymore. He's the son of the mighty Demon King. A weak apology because he really doesn't want to get killed. Kella then gives one last deadly glare, making it clear that these idiots shouldn't try any crap again. Meanwhile, waves of despair start spreading among the idiots standing on the sidelines. They can't believe this is the same Kella, a loser they used to bully. Now, Kella has risen to Sigma level, bro. Just his presence is already making the instructor fear for his own life, where Kella turns to his loser teacher and asks him to conduct the class the way he should. And in the background, Rin is impressed by this new side of Kella, something she had never seen before. And for the first time, she's sure there's something strange going on with this guy. Next, we cut to the Demon King, who's watching everything unfold from the balcony, and then we go to Halkelden's castle, where Kella's furious siblings are gathered. Dara is absolutely pissed because that brat threw poison soup in her face, and Karmam is grinding her teeth over the humiliation she suffered. For now, Karmam tries to calm her sister down by asking her to focus on recovering. After all, she doesn't have Kella's scary regenerative abilities, and that just makes her even more annoyed. She starts making a scene about how that brat has regenerative powers, and Karmam is convinced that Kella has gone through some major personality change. Meanwhile, our boy can't stop thinking about how Kella boldly turned the tables and declared that from now on, everyone should eat in their own rooms. Just that alone made their father crack a smile, something they had never seen in their entire pathetic lives. But Seldara's fury intensifies even more, because the idea that their father was smiling at someone like Kella drives her crazy. Then Tarm shares his thoughts, and even though he claims he'd rather die than join her, the situation is so serious that he has no choice but to suggest they team up to deal with Kella first. Their father then smiles, showing that he completely agrees with this idea. She also wants to deal with her little brother before Kella catches their father's attention again. Then we go back to Kella in the classroom, where he gets scared when the teacher shows him a hologram of the previous Demon King, Turk Keldon. Just seeing Turk is enough to intimidate Kella. The teacher goes on to explain how Turk was hailed as the strongest demon of all time. Then his downfall came at the hands of a cowardly scheme by the Celestial Guild. Since then, each guild started advancing toward the demon realm, hoping to be the first to wipe out the demons. Kella is already aware of these guilds because of the memories he has, and apparently, because of these guilds, Kella was never able to escape the castle and live a normal life. Living here in this hell is miserable. The professor explains to me that with the Great Celestial Guild as their foundation, those bastards are getting ready to launch an attack on the demon realm. Therefore, to help King Hell eliminate them, the professor urges every student to devote themselves body and soul to combat training. Each student shouts with enthusiasm and praise for their Demon King. Cut to Kella, who is now sitting at the highest point of the castle, contemplating their territory. This guy wants to find a way to escape. After all, if he stays, he might get caught up in his brother's dark schemes and die needlessly. According to Rin, his father is supposed to leave the castle for his next hero hunt in 3 days. Kella asks her if she knows what the biggest weakness of this castle is. Rin doesn't understand why Kella is suddenly so serious, but answers no. Kella reveals that there isn't a single mapmaker to help them navigate the battlefield territory. The bastards from the guild are using the neglected territories around them to launch their attacks. He doesn't want to waste any time before his father leaves on his next expedition. In the meantime, he plans to map out the entire area. He believes this is the only way to help his father wipe out every last one of those bastards surrounding their territory. While the old Kella failed to escape countless times, this time he plans to make his escape a success. He has more freedom here than he did in his old world and is confident he'll succeed in creating the map. Then he turns to Rin, shouting at her to set up a secret office in the castle basement immediately, since he needs a place to work without his father knowing about his plans. Then we cut back to the Demon King, who already seems aware of Kella's escape plan. He's certain that Kella won't be able to escape his watchful eye, so before it's too late, the king decides to put his own plan into action. The next scene starts with Kella's disappointed face. The space Rin picked for him isn't what he imagined. It looks more like a storage room than the fancy office worthy of the Demon King's son. Poor Rin starts to sob, since this was the best place she could find, especially because she was told the location had to be kept secret. It seems like Kella is yelling at her on purpose to establish a real master-servant dynamic between them, and the change in attitude is really working. Rin can feel that he's become much scarier, something very different from the person she used to know, and at the same time, she can't help but notice how cool he's become. He now carries himself with such grace and authority that, honestly, it's making her a little excited. Kellen starts yelling at her again for wasting time daydreaming and orders her to bring the cup of coffee. The poor girl runs off to get what he asked for. Meanwhile, Kellen finally focuses on his plans. He spreads the map out on the table. After seeing how the demon's castle is at a geographical disadvantage, he decides to make his own map. Meanwhile, Rin runs through the empty hallways, desperately trying to carry out his orders. She's so caught up in the moment that she doesn't even realize coffee doesn't exist here and has no idea how to handle this bizarre order. At that moment, she gets startled by the presence of the Demon King, who asks what she's doing in the basement without Kellen and where he is. The poor girl panics. After all, she was told to keep his office a secret, but under the king's intense gaze, she's not sure how much longer she can stay quiet. Meanwhile, Kellen is having fun drawing his own map. He's genuinely having fun mapping out the territory. Suddenly, an explosion shakes the front gate, and of course, it's his father, looking absolutely furious after finding out that Kellen created a secret office without telling him first. Our boy didn't even get a chance to explain himself before his father landed a hard blow to his stomach. His father wants Kellen to face him with courage, not hide in a basement plotting the king's death like a coward. The pain Kellen feels is on a whole other level compared to the little beatings he used to get from his brothers. If this keeps up for more than a few minutes, Kellen is sure he's going to die. Before that can happen, he quickly shows his father the map. The Demon King, completely confused, can't figure out what Kellen is trying to prove with that map. Kellen starts talking non-stop, explaining that the area around the castle isn't favorable in battles against the guilds. If they change the geography based on this map, it could really help in the upcoming battles. Finally, the king understands and pulls his hand back, but he still doesn't get why Kellen had to create a secret office. Kellen doesn't hesitate to explain that it would be way too arrogant to directly say he wanted to help the mighty Demon King. That's why he decided to show the revised map instead of making such a bold claim outright. Now, he wants to prove his usefulness with the map and asks his father to accept his help in wiping out the forces of heaven. Rin is in the back, totally lost. She keeps asking why Kellen is so reckless, facing the Demon King with so much confidence. She thinks he's trying to get himself killed. The Demon King just asks how long it will take him to finish the map, and Kellen lights up like a kid in a candy store. Realizing that his father is actually approving of the map, he holds up all 5 fingers. But the Demon King misunderstands and thinks Kellen is asking for 5 days. So our boy quickly clarifies, assuring him it'll only take 5 hours. And as soon as the map is ready, they'll be able to finish the constructions before the battle with heaven. The Demon King is surprised by his son's boldness, and eventually he smiles and gives Kellen all the permissions he needs. However, the Demon King warns Kellen that if he turns out to be more talk than action, he'll pay with his own life. And after that, the Demon King walks away. Then, suddenly, Kellen is hit by a wave of pain and vomiting, a consequence of the blow he took from his father. Seriously, he can't forget that his father could have finished him off if he hadn't proven himself. Meanwhile, Rin feels a twinge of admiration. His master, Kellen, actually managed to negotiate with the Demon King himself on his behalf. And then, of course, the girl herself gets scolded for just standing there doing nothing and ends up being ordered to take Kellen to the infirmary. As Kellen promised, he completes the map in a record time of 5 hours. The Demon King's forces gather and begin an extensive construction based on the new plan. The mages use illusion magic in an area outside the construction, altering the geography so the enemy doesn't notice what's going on behind the scenes. Just like Kellen crushed it on all the game maps, he's a hit here too. Then the scene cuts to the Celestial Guild assembly. The master of the Celestial Guild, Emerson, announces that the demons are transforming the surrounding terrain to their advantage. They also found out that the demons are using illusion magic. One of the juniors asks if they should attack and disrupt the demons' preparations. The old man replies no, and from what his strategic mind can tell, launching an attack now would be pointless since they're already behind, so their only option is to stick to the original plan. In 3 days, the strongest squad formed by Talua, known as Talua, has been building its strongest team for decades. Now that that elite squad is finally at its peak, he's certain that those annoying demons won't be able to defeat the strongest squad, which was prepared over decades and is now here in just 3 days. And that's why he's confident that the great Demon King will perish. Then the scene cuts to the Talcum squad, charging forward at full speed. They're sure they'll reach the Demon King's castle in just 2 days. Leading the charge is their general, Tillman, all fired up. He rallies his squad, proclaiming that they will be the ones to bring down the great Demon King, who has ruled for thousands of years. The rest of the squad is just as pumped, ready to burn the Demon King's castle to the ground and wipe out the creatures inside. Riding a horse just below is Shirlise, the army commander. She feels immense pride in General Killman's leadership. Her partner asks if they can really defeat the Demon King this time. Shirlise's answer is a resounding yes. Talcum's squad is different from any other guild. Taking down the Demon King in his own castle isn't such a far-fetched task. It's just a matter of time. Meanwhile, the Demon King seems pretty pleased to realize just how effective Quila's map really is. Even though it's not a perfect plan, it's better than nothing. With his own body reaching its limit, he doesn't have many people left to trust. Tomorrow will be the day when he finally settles the score with the heaven. The mages and demons are working as hard as they can to finish the necessary constructions before the deadline, and Quila is watching the progress unfold. Our boy realizes there's a big difference between mapping out terrain in a game and actually changing the geography of the real world. But even so, he feels a hell of a thrill at having the power to reshape the land. Now all he has to do is wait for the battle between hell and heaven. And tomorrow will be the day he finds out just how effective his map really is. Then, finally, the day of the battle arrives. The forces of heaven organize themselves and Talcum's squad arrives at the camp, with the soldiers shouting Talcum's name, revering his power. Guild Master Emerson meets with Commander Kilman, and Kilman expresses his desire to march toward the Demon King's territory and end everything once and for all. The old man is more than ready to go ahead with the plan, and before they start marching, the soldiers raise their hands and shout together like a true war chorus. Out of nowhere, a small blue orb appears between Kilman and Emerson's feet, and as if it were a portal rapidly expanding, Kilman roars for the soldiers to prepare for a surprise enemy attack, ordering them to take up defensive position. From that blue energy, the Demon King himself, El Kaldan, emerges. And to understand why the Demon King is there on the front lines, we go back to an earlier moment. Kallar reveals to his father that he removed the barrier that focused the sky's surveillance magic on their castle. This means that now his father can use teleportation magic without being seen. Soon, the powerful Demon King will be at the heart of the sky base. And, of course, his daughter speaks up and starts saying that teleporting straight into the enemy base is a huge reckless. Tarm also comments that it's risky even for the Demon King. The Demon King gets pissed at this criticism and feels like his children are doubting his competence. The siblings tremble under their father's engage. Actually, they were trying to warn him that he wouldn't be at 100% and should avoid taking risks. But the Demon King was already fed up. He demands silence and says that only he will decide what's right or wrong. After all, he's already made up his mind and is going to launch the attack at the heart of the Heavens base. Back to the present, the Demon King swears to take down every single one of them. Kilman, on the other hand, is also determined to make the Demon King regret ever showing up. He then quickly gives the order to his Talcum squad to start the attack. Meanwhile, Kella gathers all his strength in the right spot. With everything ready, he gives the order for the army to advance. The overwhelming army shouts as they advance, and the soldiers of the sky start casting offensive magic. But the sky soldiers are caught off guard when suddenly a massive number of demons burst out from the ground and latch onto them, while Kella watches from above. Despite the blood being spilled down below, he can't help but smile as he sees that everything is going according to plan. Just as Kella is enjoying the success of his plan, his brothers appear, clearly becoming the nightmare he didn't want. They don't want him to take all the glory and recognition from their father. So, Kella has to die right there. Tarm attacks with his sinister weapon, stabbing Kella straight in the stomach. He pushes it in even deeper, burying it as far as it will go. While Tarm presses even harder, he orders Dara to make her next move. She goes after Kella with sword in hand and, in the blink of an eye, cuts off Kella's head like it was nothing. The two siblings smile at the success of their plan, while Kella's head goes flying. Even though he has insane regenerative abilities, the siblings are sure he won't escape this one. Kella's head flies away from his body, spraying blood everywhere. His body falls from the castle wall, hitting the ground. Then, with his last breath, Kella screams, but no sound comes out. His siblings, the traitors Tarm and Seldra, look down happily, admiring their bloody work. The moment Tarm was about to walk away and go help their father, Seldra seizes the opportunity and stabs him in his weak spot. After dealing a fatal blow, she jumps away from her cunning brother, and Tarm is shocked to see their mother's forbidden weapon in Seldra's hand. This girl is crazy and doesn't care at all about the protocols that forbid using certain weapons, but they're demons, right? All this girl wants now is to eliminate the competition. That way, she'll be the only successor left. While Tarm bleeds, he charges forward in rage, determined to take Seldra down with him, but it was pretty much over for him the moment he was stabbed with the cursed blade. While they fought on the rooftop, his decapitated brother's life was slowly slipping away. Exactly, and he couldn't help but think about how truly demonic those two really are. And before he could take his last breath, the floor beneath his body magically collapses. Right below Kella is her personal maid, Rin. She quickly grabs his head and body, pulling him to safety, away from prying eyes. With difficulty, she gathers the separated parts together, seeking the safety she so desperately needed. Trembling with worry, Rin tried everything she could to help her boss, but she was still very distressed. Meanwhile, an army of demons was gathering around the teleportation portal, ready for a surprise attack in the sky. Unfortunately for them, the humans had already anticipated this tactic. Even so, the demons advanced without fear, and they were formidable in direct confrontations, no matter the circumstance. There was no turning back for either side anymore. While the infantry soldiers were engaged in inconsequential battle, the main clash intensified with the arrival of a colossal dragon. It had been quite some time since the demon king, Hulkaldum, had faced a mythical beast like that. No matter the situation, he handled the scaly monster as if it were just a lost lizard, and with his brute strength, he tore off the dragon's head, decapitating the creature before it could make the slightest attack. General Killman was shocked by that scene. Pylai, the dragon, was one of his trump cards. Panicking, he ordered the mage brigade to attack with everything they had. After an intense barrage of mana, the general waited for the smoke to clear, praying that they had dealt enough damage to the Demon King. Then, the humans felt a collective chill run down their spine, and Hulkaldum emerged from the rubble, his body twisting and transforming into something supernatural. Radiating limitless power, the boss had just entered his final form. General Killman had studied this form in ancient texts throughout history. Few had ever had the privilege of seeing the Demon King's final form and surviving to tell the tale. The soldiers looked to their superiors for orders, completely frozen with fear, struggling not to let morale drop. Commander Schiltz did the best he could. Even General Killman felt the paralyzing terror taking over his body. The Demon King noticed a critical flaw in the plan. Otherwise, it was flawless on Kella's part. Although they tried to take the fight to the center of the sky base, they were effectively trapping themselves in a life-or-death battlefield. And since the Demon King Hell couldn't let this flaw get in the way of an opportunity to gain aura, he was used to playing a zero-sum game. Somehow, he felt that his son also took his pride into account. Pushing aside useless thoughts, Hell focused on how he would build everything along the way. As usual, the best way to solve a problem was to eliminate everyone until they were dead. Getting into his combat stance, General Killman urgently warned his men about what was coming. He began to shake off his emotions, which were useless now. Then he moved forward at the front line. The Demon King's eyes gleamed with brutality as the war reached its climax. Back in the basement, hidden from the castle, Rin was still holding his master's body, making sure he didn't move an inch. He prayed to any deity that would listen for a miracle to heal young Master Killa. A few days earlier, Kella had forced Rin to take part in macabre experiment. He would dismember his own body, and the poor servant had to help put the pieces back together. It was a bit disgusting, but it worked. Healing a severed arm took only a few seconds, and after a few tests on non-lethal parts, Kella had steeled his resolve to face decapitation next. He needed to make sure his super regeneration would work on such a serious He promised Rin that they would take it slow with the head. After several stressful decapitation experiments, Kella confirmed that he was pretty much immortal. My friend. The next part of the plan was, of course, to leak some false information to Seldora's personal servant. Rin did as he was ordered and told the fake plan about how Kella planned to kill Seldora during the war, while the king was fighting in the sky. And of course, Seldora's servant was outraged when she heard all of this. Taking advantage of her reaction, Rin added that the only way to get around Kella's insane regeneration was to decapitate him. Back in the present, Rin was gritting his teeth with worry. The crazy plan had worked perfectly, but none of it would be worth it if the young, reformed, reckless, and foolish lord died anyway. Before anyone noticed, the wound on his neck had already healed and the color of life was returning to his face. Kella really believed it was all over. His recovery speed might have slowed down because of the mana-infused dagger, but now that he was okay, it was time to prepare for the next part of the plan. Rin was pretty happy because her master was still breathing, so she, unable to hold back all her emotions, hugged him tightly. Our boy wasn't used to this kind of feeling in his previous lives, and Kella blushed. His mind was a complete mess now, so he tried to gently push her away a bit, to try to focus on the plan again. Before moving forward, he graciously dissolved Rin's servitude contract once and for all, and with that, she would finally regain her long-awaited freedom. This kind decision touched Rin's heart deeply. Now that the contract was no longer valid, he advised her to live the life she had always wanted, free from any restraints, and seeing him walk away with dignity made the heart of the newly freed creature race. She remembered the first time she met him, back when she was a child, and that made her think of simpler time. Back then, the little boy only dreamed of having a friend, not a servant. The memory of how he treated her years later made her feel an immense weight of guilt, and to make up for her past mistakes, she kneels and begs Kella to accept her back as her servant once again. Even though she is reluctant, she continues to follow our hero through the castle's secret tunnels. Then the scene cuts to the main event, where General Killman, on the brink of death, is badly wounded, staggering with one eye missing. On the other side, the Demon King wasn't doing well either. Hel Kaldun, missing an arm, had suffered serious injury. Surrounded by quick attacks from multiple angles, the Demon King was still able to stay on his feet, and Killman alone realized he was no match for this monster. He concluded that no human alone could stop this catastrophe, and looking around, Hel realized that almost all the human forces had been wiped out, and of course, the same applied to his own soldier. He remembers his children, accepts that none of them will come to help him, and instead of giving in to disappointment, he recalls that this has always been his personal fight. With his last remnant of mana, he decides to wipe out everything that stands in his way. Meanwhile, Kella and Rin finally reach the light at the end of the underground tunnel. As soon as he gets out, he will be free from the Demon Castle's surveillance. A true sense of freedom is about to happen. Focused on his escape, he almost fell into a trap, but Rin saves him with her intervention at the last second. She steps in front of him and conjures a magical shield, protecting him from evil spells. The girl did the right thing by protecting him. As soon as she smelled blood and hiding no longer made sense, the Sky Assassins revealed themselves. These guys were hiding in the tunnels, ready to eliminate any demons trying to escape. It's a mystery how these guys managed to cover this secret exit. These assassins weren't messing around. Their only mission was to wipe out the Demon King's royal bloodline. From a safe distance, they fire spells that Rin blocks with great effort using his shield, which quickly wears down. As a loyal servant, the young Lord Rin's attendant is determined to put his safety above everything else, even her own life. She reminds Rin that she only has access to basic defensive magic. She really can't hold out for long. What's more, she can barely cast attack spells either. She has saved his life twice and is now risking her own safety just so he can escape. Kella then grabs her by the shoulder with a calm expression on her face and scolds her for acting so headstrong. If this girl really wants to be his servant, the least she can do is survive a little longer. The assassins start laughing, calling him an idiot for throwing away his last chance at survival. And from their perspective, even mid-level spells would be enough to take out Kella, the weakest heir of the Demon King's castle. But look, what they didn't know is that reality is quite different. Kella has always been a shy boy. He had the power, but he never had the courage to use it. But now, with a new soul in control of everything, things have changed. That means the information the humans have is completely wrong, and they really believe that the Demon King's son was just a weakling. Suddenly, Kella proved everyone wrong by defeating one of the assassins with just a single punch. These guys really needed to update their intel, and while holding one of them, another assassin tries to beg for his life, but ends up being crushed. Defeating the Sky Assassin Mage was no easy task. While his companions panic, she turns her fury on them. In a tight spot, the mages have only one option, a light spear spell. With this technique, they can gather all their remaining mana into a single devastating attack. The problem is, if they fail, it means a fatal blow for them. Realizing how serious the spell is, Rin tries to warn her master to fall back, but it was already too late. Both are struck by countless spears of light, and that wound brings a total paralysis over her body. Rin also ended up caught by the petrifying spell. Apologizing for failing her master once again, she finds herself powerless. The remaining mages, gasping for breath, feel satisfied that their plan worked. Pushing their blades forward, they confidently approach to finish off the pair. One of them, finally, suggests that they should be rewarded for all the trouble they went through. The restrained servant could even be a bit of fun before they finished the mission. And without showing any fear, Rin shouted defiantly at the filthy human. This was Quella's first encounter with humans in this new world. Just like in her previous life, humans are still capable of causing great harm. Turning his attention to the Demon King's son, the mage began to coat his sword with mana, and Quella was just 12 steps away from freedom after being decapitated. This guy can't afford to fall now, can he? As the blade wavered, the young lord felt as if time had completely stopped. Something or someone was approaching. When he opened his eyes, he saw his father's avatar before him, and at first, he thought the Demon King had ended the war. And if that's true, his plans for freedom would go down the drain. Then King Hel Kaldun began to speak to him with utmost sincerity. As the Demon King, he had fought in countless wars and considered every possibility many times over. In his view, Seldora is a brat who has no regard whatsoever for her fellow demon. And, on the other hand, Tarmi has no ambition to lead the kingdom. Confused and unsettled, Quella asked his father what he was really hoping for. What was going on there? The king simply ignored Quella's questions and began to state that, as Demon King, he could transfer his mana to his bloodline before dying. Although it was only for a very brief moment, Hell saw that Quella was the best candidate to inherit the throne. Aware that this would interfere with his plans, Quella tried to refuse, but he had no say in the matter. The Demon King had already made his decision, and so, Hell Kaldan compressed all the mana he had left into his heir and son, Quella Kaldan. Against his will, the young lord was forced to accept the dark sphere of concentrated power into his body, and with a melancholy look, Hell wished that his son would not mourn his death and that he would behave like a true demon from then on. And back on the main battlefield, the last breath of life left the decapitated head of the king. Commander Shears was left speechless and began to murmur that the Demon King was dead. General Killman had to sacrifice himself for this to happen, but the last-minute effort worked. Even the remaining soldiers couldn't believe it. They stared at the king's corpse. When it finally sank in, everyone started shouting and screaming, celebrating the victory. But, unbeknownst to the humans, the king's son was assimilating the royal demonic power. By becoming one with the Demon King's mana, the fragile spears of light that had been restraining Rin dissipated as if they were nothing. The mages felt a sudden surge in the young lord's mana and cowered in fear, and Quella let out a laugh. In fact, everything worked out in the end. Now that Hell is dead and he has inherited the infinite power, everything finally fell into place. The mages desperately searched for an escape plan, since their mana was depleted. Then, searching within herself, Quella sensed an endless void of darkness. The power Hell gave her was far too immense to be fully understood right now. As the mages backed away in fear, Quella asked if they could repeat the nasty threats they had made to Rin earlier. And of course, he is a blood demon. But humans definitely love to claim the title with their words and action. With his father's power, facing these weak mages was as easy as it could be. Hell's power was truly profound, but Quella feels that drawing on it puts a lot of strain on his body. It seems he still can't handle it at all. After making sure Rin was okay, master and servant made their way out of that cursed place. Even though this guy might not have been a good father to Quella, he still thanked him. After all, thanks to King Hell, his escape was possible. While the Demon King's castle burned in the background, the pair walked through a green field, and for the first time in his life, Quella felt truly free. The possibilities from this point on are endless. This guy can go anywhere he wants and be whoever he wants to be. He can live the life he always dreamed of. As he lost himself in this feeling of liberation, a strange power began to gather around him. Before being completely engulfed, Rin recognized the magical fluctuations as a teleportation spell and quickly grabbed Quella's hand, pulling him along to wherever this mysterious spell would take them. The pair were headed to a place where magic and innovation thrive, though they had no idea of it. When they landed, the two were completely lost as to where the spell had taken them. At first, Rin thought his master had activated the teleportation spell, but he denied any involvement. Besides being transported to an unknown land, all their remaining wounds were completely healed. Hey, Quella estimates that they were inside the teleportation space for about 3 days. The Demon King probably set up this time frame intentionally, along with the healing magic for emergency. This guy was able to create 2 high-level spells at the same time. That's not a spell just anyone could pull off. He might have been a somewhat absent father, but Hell Kaldan really did care about his children's survival, and Rin put the pieces together and concluded that the Demon King was truly dead. And with a smile on her face, Quella was happy to realize that her plan had worked out very well. And seeing the empty throne in flames, Rin suggested that her master take over as the next Demon King. And of course, that was the last thing he wanted to do. However, Rin had noticed the drastic change he had gone through in the past few days. Now, he saw her as the true successor to the king's legacy. She promised to serve him with all her strength until he properly took the throne. Anyway, he sighed in defeat and let her do as she pleased for now, since there was no one else to help. After walking for a few minutes, they spotted the first clue as to where they had actually landed. And from the local architecture, they realized they were in the country of magic, known as Arsal, where magical talent is cultivated with the aim of subjugating demons. Arsal, as the center of magic, was celebrating the fall of the Demon King Hell, exalting the light of the Talua. The pair, however, were confused. They couldn't understand why the teleportation spell had brought them to the heart of enemy territory. If they were discovered to be demons, a grim fate awaited them. So, thinking quickly, Rin used transformation magic to hide their demonic feature, and Quella did the same, transforming into a punk with a dyed mullet. Knowing nothing about Arsal, he asked Rin to give him an overview of the country of magic. And according to her, Arsal was a small island country located on the border. eastern shore of Talu. This place is blessed by the giant crypt, which rests nearby. The presence of the crypt also made it possible for magic to develop on the island, resulting in many powerful mages. Besides that, they have a long-standing feud with the demons over the Talua flag, and she can't understand why her father would send him to this country. Of all places, naturally, he wants to get out of this area as quickly as he can. However, escaping from there requires a bit more planning if they really wanted to do this the right way, so they could achieve greater goals in this. Magic would be essential, and there's no better place to hone your knowledge than in a city brimming with magic. In our soul, magic is completely woven into the lives of the people. They even use it in their most common construction. Some of these structures rely entirely on magic, and if Quila manages to learn here, she'll be able to use her gaming knowledge much more efficiently. But first, they need to find something to eat, since they've been suspended in space for 3 days. Fortunately, our soul is full of commerce, with food stalls on every corner of the city square, and Rin was delighted to try the country's famous magical duck pastry. Just one food stall was enough to get her hooked. So, their plan to keep a low profile went down the drain, while the two of them hopped from stall to stall, leading the mission. Rin sniffed and tasted everything that caught her interest, to the point where she started considering the possibility of leaving her right there in the middle of the street. After an entire day indulging themselves, they found a magical bar to relax. Inside the bar, were celebrating the subjugation of the Demon King. Leading the celebration was none other than Commander Shirley's of Talcan, who was picking up the tab for the whole place. The drunkards were toasting the greatest mage our soul had ever produced. Among the crowd were Kellen and Rin. A few beers were enough to get the lighter ones drunk and ready to celebrate with the human. Having fun, Kella started to think that taking some time to relax every now and then wasn't so bad after all. While they were drunk and enjoying the party, their attention was drawn by the triumphant commander. For some unknown reason, she became interested in that unusual. After a few rounds, Kella had to run outside the bar to throw up. They were so excited that they ended up overdoing it with the drinks. With her head a bit clearer, Rin also thought it was a little disrespectful for them to be celebrating the Demon King's death. Suddenly, a crowd started running toward the town square. Everyone was excited about a new S-rank mission that had been posted for anyone who wanted it. The last S-rank mission to kill the Demon King had just ended, and the authorities were already launching another one. Curious, Rin dragged the still nauseous young lord along to check out what all the commotion was about. They looked at the notice posted on the castle wall. There was a poster, "Wanted, the Demon King's son," and with an exorbitant reward for his head. Looks like the humans really want to wipe out the royal bloodline this time. And Kella almost gave away his identity, drunk. If it were for Rin's timely most people already know that Kella is the weakest of the Demon King's children. That means they can claim an S-rank reward by completing a B-rank difficulty mission. Every hunter on the continent must be celebrating. Hearing the crowd's disparaging remarks instantly cured Kella's hangover. He realizes he needs to play it safe and a low profile. That's the plan for now, making sure not to draw attention. As master and servant walk away from the square, Rin decides to ask the master how she should address him in public. After all, they can't just go around calling him by his real name, right? After thinking for a moment, he asks to be called Shinyu. That name is really simple, short, and lacks grandeur, and Rin felt a twinge of disappointment. But anyway, the posting of that S-class bounty is not good news. Shinyu had already given up on staying another second in our soul. While they were listening about the new S-class mission, the drunken commander, Shirley's, barged in holding a mug of alcohol. She may not know her, but Kella feels that this woman is a threat, just from her aura. People in the tavern call her the hope of our soul. She badmouthed the surviving son of the Demon King, and Kella had to swallow her words, adding them to the pile of trash. Getting caught by this lady would be the worst-case scenario for him. Curious, the commander grabbed them by the shoulder and asked directly if that bastard son of the Demon King had caused any trouble. Then, inside the tavern, she notices something peculiar. These two have a very different scent, strangely isolated from the rest of. Just when the two think their disguise has been discovered, it turns out she only picked them because they smelled like travelers who haven't bathed in ages. Being a good Samaritan, she invited the two to her house to wash up and have a few drinks as well. And Kellen and Rin exchanged a few confused glances, both not really understanding and afraid of sounding suspicious. They stiffly agreed to the invitation. So, they walked to the home of our soul's hope, being forced to stay. And Kella was pleasantly surprised to find a beautiful redhead offering a hot, relaxing bath. She even brought a nice cup of tea and some delicious snacks of peculiar flavor. Given the unique taste of the treats, he suspected that maybe even those had been made with magic. After all, ever since arriving in this new world, Shinyu feels like he's been living his dream. He's drunk, well-fed, clean, and now has the power of a demon king. This Ice Sky life isn't so bad after all, is it? Meanwhile, in the other bath, Rin was trembling with fear, afraid of being found out, while beside her, Commander Sheares was showing off her pride in her vast and luxurious bathtub. The bathtub was really big, round and filled with water, but of course it would be filled with water. Can you guys know? She jokes that Rin should try to stop being so nervous or someone might think she's a demon. Wow, she really hit a sensitive spot. Huh? She started laughing awkwardly, trying to hide her nervousness, and to help her relax, the commander's fingers danced in the air, releasing a fragrant scent, and Rin immediately caught the scent of a sacred element, which happens to be the worst smell for demon. This smell isn't just unpleasant to sense, it also drains her demonic mana. If Rin stays in this bath for a few more seconds, her disguise spell will be undone. All this girl wanted to do now was call her master to help her, but he was busy sipping his tea and enjoying the relaxing bath too. Then, in an unusual way, the commander started talking about all the strange things that had just happened, and Shears believed that all the suffering would end as soon as the Demon King died. Rin then quickly pinched her nose, wanting to get away from the stench of the sacred essence. Shears, ignoring all her obvious discomfort, went on to say that she was raised to become the supreme mage, and finally, fed up with the conversation, Rin interrupted her dramatic story and ran off. Man, and she apologized, claiming she needed to use the bathroom. Shears leaned on the edge of the bathtub, giving a really strange smile, and Rin quickly got dressed and found her master in the hallways of the commander's mansion. He had never felt so relaxed before, but he knew it wasn't time for leisure. Rin's disguise spell was almost undone, and she feared the commander was starting to suspect something. That sacred scent is a complex spell, one that only an advanced mage would be able to use, and not realizing the seriousness of the situation, she wonders if she could take another quick bath before they have to leave. Sensing Rin's discomfort, the commander covered her bathtub and asked if her guests were turning down a second round. Rin awkwardly tried to avoid the commander's deep gaze. Then, Shears conjured a sphere of mana, promising to prepare more drinks and mana-infused dishes for the two guests. Curious about food magic, our young master easily persuaded into yet another round. Meanwhile, a group of mages began to gather outside the mansion. They had received information about the presence of demons inside the place, and according to the sources, it's not just any demon, but the very son of the Demon King. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them to make it big. And inside the living room, Shears was full of herself, bragging about her drink and her holy water. The two disguised demon guests were forced to drink without making a face, even as they felt the intense burning the drink caused. And with a desolate look, Shears went back to the conversation she was having with Rin earlier, while relaxing in the bath. Then she continued her traumatic rant about the hard life she had led. To get this far, she joined the Talcon squad and trained as if her life depended on it, all because of the mission to kill the Demon King. Over time, she acquired many scars that show how much she fought and dedicated herself. She must have hidden those scars with magic, since Rin hadn't seen them before. In fact, she's also missing an eye, an ugly scar, the result of it being torn out from the right side of her face. That commander was used to hiding her imperfections with magic, since seeing them brings back the pain of her past. And when she was a child, she and the other kids her age were indoctrinated to hate the Demon King. That way, they formed a squad whose sole mission was to overthrow Hel Keldon. They were taught to endure all kinds of pain in the name of the mission. And, over time, Shears was indoctrinated by the Order, shaping her ideology. Before she realized, her whole life had been dedicated to a single clear goal, and all she got in were scars. Curious, she quickly approached Kella and lifted his shirt to see if he had scars too. And when she touched and caressed his skin, which was smooth, without any marks or scar tissue, she went crazy. Rin and Kella's alarms started going off. Shears' touch was not only unexpected, but it also started to melt away his disguise. Finally, she whispered to Kella, directly asking if he was a filthy demon. Now it was clear that this woman had always known what they were. Suddenly, rats started running out of the fireplace. These rats were quickly fried by the unexpected visitor, the mages from Arsal. Apparently, the commander brought them to his house with the intention of capturing the disguised pair. Surprisingly, the mages paid no attention to either of them. They were focused on the scar over Shears' eye. They claimed that a message from the heavens had warned them about Arsal's true identity, which was hidden. Shears, from Talcan, is actually a demon who infiltrated Arsal, and after being accused of being the demon, she didn't seem bothered at all. And Kella is starting to get confused with all these twists and turns. These mages aren't after him. In fact, they're after the hero who killed the Demon King. Now, with no reason to hide her true identity, Shears uses dark magic to summon her staff. She confesses that she was also the one who leaked her own secret, and with the confirmation that she's a demon, there was no reason to hesitate anymore. The mages unleashed their most powerful spell, all at once. Despite being a demon, she's also Talcan's elite mage. A dozen lousy mages from Arsal could never dream of matching even one of, and afraid of getting caught in the magical crossfire, Rin asked her master to get out of the way. Before she could move, a dark explosion engulfed the entire room, with dense contractions of mana spreading everywhere all at once. When the black smoke cleared, master and servant were incredibly unharmed. Shires easily dodged all the magical chaos without even breaking sweat. The enigmatic commander of Talcan had just protected the two of them. Shires had known from the start that they were demons. They simply can't hide from. And to put the two at ease, she introduced herself as Shires Kaldan, daughter of the demon king Helcaldo. After this revelation, the young master and servant were left. They needed to save time, so Shires summoned a mana particle to explain her origins through memory transfer magic. Then, suddenly, the pair was confronted with a vision from the past. In it, the demon king appeared along with one of his trusted aides. It was the day they would crack the code to create a demon who could hide their horn and power. At that moment, the young Shires was awestruck by the absolute ruler. He told her that his blood ran in her veins and that she would now bear his name as his daughter. Since her birth, she had been nothing more than one of his lab rats, created in secret. And every day was a true hell under the supervision of cruel demons. She had to endure painful experiments for a long time. And in the end, all the children in the secret complex died, leaving her as the sole survivor. At that time, she thought she would soon meet the same fate as the others, but her life changed completely. When Hel adopted her as his daughter, she was filled with honor, eager to serve her lord and father. It was on that day that she received the name Shires Kaldan, and along with her new name came a mission. She disguises herself as a spy and infiltrates the heaven with the goal of gathering valuable information. If it depended on her father, the Demon King, she would do anything with a smile on her face. And so, the infiltration begins, with her pretending to be a wounded innocent child wandering near Arsal. The mages, thinking she had been attacked by demons, rushed her off for treatment. And with that, her life as the Demon King's spy officially begins. Over time, she rises through the ranks until she reaches Talyu, becoming a mark of Arsal. The path to the top was full of challenges, but she overcame every obstacle that appeared in her way. And finally, she qualifies for the most powerful squad there is, the Talcan Elite. 15 years after being infiltrated into human society, she finally gets the chance to see her father once again. But this time, they meet on the battlefield. She wanted to run to him and hug him, but she held herself back. Poor thing. She knew she needed to be strong and wait for everyone around her, except General Killman, to be defeated. Shires was positioned to the side, and her secret mission was to discreetly eliminate the Talcan squad with her magic. And with that, she could support her father until General Killman fell. Once Talcan was defeated, she could finally consider herself victorious and return to the castle by her father's side. This girl wanted nothing more than to start a new life, with her father adopting her true name, Shires Kaldan. However, the battle took an unexpected turn. The general and the Demon King exchanged compliments, surpassing all expectation. Like an alpha predator, Hel was offended to receive praise from an insignificant human. And finally, the general revealed his last trump card, a final attack with all his power. It was the Spear of the Martyrs of Heaven. Matching his strength, the Demon King summoned the flames of Hel, Magna Lesioner. The impact of the two ultimate techniques resulted in an intense, blazing explosion, and Styles felt an unsettling premonition at that moment. At that instant, her father's voice echoed in her ears. Poor thing. After 15 years, he finally called her by her name again. In his final moment, Helcaldo gave her one last order, to serve the next Demon King. Just as she had served him, it was her mission to protect the bloodline to the very end. As tears streamed down her face, the fusion of heaven and hell consumed everything around. And when the explosion subsided, the decapitated head of the Demon King lay motionless on the ground. Looking at the mortal remains of her own father, whom she hadn't seen in 15 years, made her emotions explode, and she couldn't hold back any longer. After witnessing the death of her own father, the Demon King, she needed to maintain her disguise and to tell you. While she remembered the loss of the most important person in her life, others were joyfully celebrating across the continent. And for the first time in millennia, humans finally emerged victorious. And from that moment on, Shires decided to retire and move to Arsal, which she considered her second home. She wanted to start a new life. Arsal would become her base as she planned to avenge her father's death. The plan would begin with wiping the country of magic off the map. Iron felt confused, while she had a knot in her stomach. He thought he had finally gotten rid of Lunatic's sibling, but he was wrong. Even though they weren't related by blood, Having another sibling meant one more headache. Shire said she wouldn't force her and Rin to join her as demon companions, but she was absolutely certain that Arsal was a central threat to the entire demon race. The more they let the center of magic thrive, the bigger the problem he would become, and sooner or later, her brother, the last hope of the demon race, Kella Cowdern, could lose his life. Her words made sense. Even in the game, Chul remembered how important the participation of mages was in wars. If they left Arso alone, he would just keep honing arcane skills until he could finally take them down. And speaking of mages, the first to respond to the situation were terrified and feared that the explosion would draw more attention and that others would take credit for their discovery. So, to unleash a decisive attack, they gathered all their mana for a deadly blow. And come to think of it, these mages must think that the two young people beside Shirlise are just ordinary human. They attacked without considering the collateral damage. Annoyed, Kella removed his disguise, revealing his horns and fangs, declaring that he would defend himself. When she sensed the pure energy he was emanating, Shirlise's eyes widened in shock and recognition. She had no doubt. She could feel her father's strength pulsing within that young man. That night, the siblings fought an endless battle against the very heart of magic in the human world. To Rin's untrained eyes, it looked like a one-sided massacre. And for Shirlise, Arkleon was like a second home. She knew it like the back of her hand. She began a complete destruction, slashing and burning the main government building, followed by the Magic Academy. And Kella used the mana of the Demon King, which he had inherited, to match his sister's efficiency. Then, together, they subdued the powerful, intoxicated by the celebration. And without hesitation, he tore his opponents apart as if they were nothing. And thanks to flawless teamwork, the siblings managed to make the magical nation of Arkleon surrender. The entire city, supported by the magical arch, burned deliberately and intensely in the darkness of the night. The smell of burnt human flesh hung in the air. Some of the wizards who survived cursed the demons destroying their home. But in truth, Shirlise could very well do the same to these. They're just striking back for everything those humans did to the demon realm. And Arkleon is just the beginning. Shirlise had already set his sights on the Talcon squad and the vast empire of Talar. She was determined to put an end to everything. Yet, knowing the scale of such a mission, it seemed impossible. Now that they had just wiped out Arkleon, Kella apologized and walked away from her sister. Before he could leave, she revealed that she knew the man he was using, who was connected to true identity. Since she already knew, there was no point in hiding anymore. When he confirmed his true identity, Shirlise was completely shocked. And to be honest, she was just taking a wild guess. She wasn't absolutely. And since that was the case, Shirlise explained that she wasn't the Demon King's daughter in the traditional sense. In fact, she was more like a mute created by the blood aura. This led her to wholeheartedly acknowledge Kella's royal lineage. She might not look it, due to some characteristic, but Shirlise was actually created after Kella was born. That makes Kella her older brother. The young lord was stunned, believing that she too was seeking revenge for her father. She formally invited him to help with her mission. She didn't know that revenge was the last thing on his mind at that moment. Damn, he even ran away from home. But she quickly noticed the discomfort on her brother's face. The crazy sister had to remind Kella that he was the only remaining bloodline of the king, his father's only living child. Fearing that this wild redhead might turn on him, Rin told the master to accept the invitation. So, at that point, Kella also realized he had no choice but to play along. Delighting in his decision, Shirlise smiled and walked toward the next destination. While he pretends, Kella plans to extract all the Arkleon magic that his mutant sister controlled. Revenge is the best excuse to buy time while she wins over a powerful ally. Without them noticing, a mage survived the attack and headed straight for Talar. Thus, the capital received the urgent message from the surviving maid. The news quickly reached the ears of Talar's greedy ruler. The information that Commander Shirlise is a demon in disguise and that Arkleon was destroyed with the help of Kella shook the human king. Knowing that they had lost the demon king's offspring in Arkleon was already a blow. But the prince's alliance with a treacherous commander, even if powerful, made the situation even worse. Imagine if news of how this story unfolded were to spread. The king was already more worried about becoming a laughingstock than about the ruined state of his city. Holding a steak knife, the king decreed a manhunt to eliminate Kella Cowdern and Shirlise before the crown could be dishonored. His advisor, Aiden, swore on his behalf that he would take care of the matter swiftly. Then, displayed in the throne room, was the severed, lifeless head of the Demon King, a demonstration of royal power. Even in death, Hel Cowdern continued to be a constant nuisance for Talar. Driven by a burning hatred for demons, Aiden made a personal vow to wipe out every last drop of demon blood left in this world. The loyal advisor called upon someone named General Killian and his squad to handle this urgent mission. And if you ask anyone in the kingdom who the best knight is, the answer will be unanimous: Killian.